Welcome to Uniting the Cults. I'm making this video to help people with their fear of hell. Um, this gets talked about so much. I have a personal, I care about this very personally. This affected my children a lot. It didn't affect me. I didn't have any fear of hell while I was a Muslim, or definitely not afterwards. The reason my kids dealt with it is because of their mother. I won't get into that right now. So I want to talk about a lot of things related to the fear of hell. And there's no special order in all of this. I don't know what should be the most important thing to discuss first. I'm going to try to go in some sort of order. So for people who have the fear of hell, I want you to think about what it takes to go to heaven, and are you earning heaven? I've considered these questions before. When I was a Muslim, I remember reading a part of the Quran that said something like, a, a good Muslim is a fearing Muslim. And I remember thinking, well, I don't fear. So does that mean I'm not a good Muslim? Which made no sense to me. I didn't even consider, am I not a good Muslim? I knew I was going to heaven. I didn't murder, I didn't rape, I didn't steal. I had good manners. I tried to be helpful to people. So I knew I was going to heaven, and it didn't make sense to me, there was a conflict. Islam says I'm supposed to fear, or that's what a good Muslim is. I thought I was a good Muslim. I didn't fear. That didn't make sense. It took other things to happen before I realized all of it was nonsense. So if you're fearing hell, uh, what there, you need to consider the question: what is it that you're doing that would make you go to hell? And if it's something like you don't believe in God, the idea that people are going to hell because they don't believe in God, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. If you go to hell, it better be for something like you are Hitler. Um, the next thing I want to talk about. So, for a lot of people, when they experience the fear of hell, it's after some other thoughts that happen first. Um, like, let's say they hear a new miracle claim being talked about by a bunch of people they know or whatever, or it's blasting on the internet now. It's viral. And, they're already at the state of, I don't believe in Islam, but then they hear this miracle claim and it brings back thoughts and emotions. It triggers thoughts and emotions, the same ones they had when they were Muslims. And one problem there is you didn't really learn about miracles. You still seem to think that miracles are, make sense. For you to hear about a miracle claim and then your first thought isn't this is retarded, then you haven't learned why miracle claims are nonsense. So I recommend that you go learn about that. I have a lot of videos and Reddit posts in the ex-Muslim subreddit discussing that. I'm not going to link them all in the description. There's just too many. You can find them in my newsletter. I'll link that in the description. So sometimes when people uh, are experiencing the fear of hell, what's the trigger that caused it isn't a miracle claim. It is, let's say, maybe this is more general. They have this thought: what if Islam is true? And then they go through a train of triggered thoughts and emotions after that. What if Islam is true? Thought. So I want to discuss this question itself: what if Islam is true? And I want to help you understand the question, the validity, the validity of the question, whether the question actually makes sense. What if Islam is true? And then like how they're using the question. So let's think of the form of the question. What if X is true? And we can put anything in X. So let's try some other ones. What if Santa Claus is true? Um, what if uh, walking under a ladder actually gives you bad luck? What if rabbit's feet holding one or whatever actually gives you good luck? What if the earth is flat? All these kinds of questions, um, maybe you already know for some of them, it's not something that worries you. You already know why it's wrong or whatever. But from what I've heard from people, the reason they focus on this one and not the other ones is, well, this is the only one that says you're going to burn in hell forever. I also want to talk about how scientists would respond to a question like this. What if Islam is true? And again, what if X is true? So let's say X is the earth is flat. What if the earth is actually flat? That question. If a physicist was to hear this question, they're not going to go, have a bunch of triggered thoughts about, maybe the earth is flat. They, maybe at one time they did go through the process of judging the idea whether the earth is flat. And the way that goes is, they'll try to find some phenomenon that they know exists and which contradicts the idea that the earth is flat, but does not contradict their own idea that the earth is round. And they're doing this to try to find a contradiction. And once they find one, they're done. They stop. They don't think about it more. They've rejected the theory that the earth is flat. They don't revisit the question for no good reason 50 times a day just because somebody said something like some miracle claim or some claim about the earth or whatever. I don't know. The only reason they would reconsider the question is if they got some new piece of information that changed the logic of their thinking, that changed the reason, that might change the conclusion. So when you have these thoughts, what if Islam is true? I want you to also think, am I thinking like a scientist? And if not, to seriously consider that and then try to reverse it. Try to think like a scientist. Don't think like a mythologist. Now I want to compare the fear of hell to something else. There is this obscure philosophy known as solipsism. It basically means something like, it says something like, you can't really be sure that anything exists except for yourself. And people that contemplate this idea, a lot of them end up with the conclusion something like, if solipsism is true, then nobody else exists but me, which is like saying I'm God and everything else is a figment of my imagination, something like that. And some people who go through this line of thought actually get scared and they start having anxiety attacks. They start freaking out. I've seen this online. They're freaking out about it. Now let's compare solipsism and Islam. Solipsism is just some obscure idea that somebody came up with probably centuries ago. It's written in some philosophy books. The only time people hear about it is when they read that philosophy book, or it's now on Reddit, and some of us are reading it there. And there's no concept in solipsism that's trying to scare you. There's no hell part of the concept. And there's no people that are trying to force you to believe solipsism. Yet there are still people freaking the fuck out about this stupid fucking idea. So comparing it to Islam again, apparently you don't need this really horrible concept of hell to get people scared of a concept. And you don't actually need a whole ton of indoctrination happening for 1400 years from parent to child, generation after generation for 1400 years. You don't need that, apparently, to freak the fuck out about some stupid ass idea. So you got to realize what you're doing is stupid. Compare it to other very stupid things, like being scared of solipsism. Finally, I want to say the reason people are fearing hell, or part of it, is that I want you to think of your fear of hell, or fear in general, as a muscle. And I want you to think of your critical thinking skills as a muscle. Now, when you were young, if you were growing up in a family that abused you, scared you, told you about hell, especially the worst parts of it, that it lasts forever, your flesh keeps being remade so it can be reburned. The more your parents do that to you, the more you are effectively exercising your fear muscle. And every time you exercise your fear muscle, you're making your fear muscle stronger. Now, if you instead were raised in a family on the other extreme where there was no, they weren't scaring you with hell, they didn't abuse you, they didn't punish you, they didn't shame you even, you had freedom to think. In that environment, you are strengthening your critical thinking muscle, and you're not strengthening your fear muscle. And these go against each other. If the fear muscle is strong, their critical thinking muscle is weak. If the fear muscle is if the critical thinking muscle is strong, then the fear muscle is weak. And so if you find yourself in a situation where you are fearing hell, you should recognize that as a problem where the solution is to strengthen your critical thinking muscle, which effectively will weaken your fear muscle. Now, to go about improving your critical thinking skills, to improve your critical thinking muscle, to strengthen it, this is the topic of epistemology. This is the study of knowledge. It's the study of how to tell true from false, how to evolve our ideas by correcting errors in them. It's a big field, so if you think you can go online and learn a bunch about it, most of what's online is wrong. So that's maybe not the greatest way to do it. I've written a couple of articles about epistemology, which you can use as a guide to learning about epistemology and to go learn more. And to be clear, you can't just learn this stuff without practice. You can't just read a couple of books and think you know it, or you really have to practice the ideas. And so I want to give you an idea of how to practice this. So first thing is to read on your own and to try to apply the ideas in your life. And the other part is to get help from other people, to discuss with other people. You can be doing text discussion like on Reddit. I'm happy to do that with you. like in the ex-Muslim subreddit. Um, you could be talking with people in real life. The benefit there over text discussion is that you're seeing people's face, body language. There's a lot of communication that happens through facial expression and body language that people really need. Um, People that are doing text discussion very well have surpassed that, and they're doing a lot on their own, not needing the facial expressions and body language very much. Another thing you can do is video calls, like a Zoom call, Discord call, and that gives you basically all the benefits of the in real life situation. You're getting the communication through facial expression and body language. And actually, you can get another bonus here with a video call. You can have let's say a Google Doc on the screen where you're both typing in there. So you can have a text discussion and a video call combined into one. That would be the best way. I recommend people to do this. You can come on my podcast to do it. I'll help you with what you're wanting help with. Especially if it's something like this, you want to improve your critical thinking skills. And that's it. And if you want to contact me for something like this, please just use one of the channels. Ex-Muslim subreddit is good enough, but other ones work too. Good luck, everyone. Be water, my friends.